Okay, Daf Tes, we're going to start from the Mishnah, Beis Shammai, Oimrim, Ein Meilichin, Es Asula, Meshevech, L'Shevech. This is now our second Mishnah. The first Mishnah, we had the Chumrah of Beis Hillel over Beis Shammai, which was the anomaly. Now we're getting back to more classical, Beis Shammai being more machmir. So Beis Shammai says you cannot be Meilch L'Sulam, you can't move the ladder, Meshevech, L'Shevech, from one chicken coop to another chicken coop. Aval Matehu, Mechalein, L'Chalein, but from one pigeonhole, I guess is the right taich, to another one, and Beis Hillel is matirin. And we're going to explain what in the Mishnah, what are they arguing about, and we'll get into this now. Amar of Chanan bar Ami, machlekes bereshus harabim. This machlekes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel is dafka in reshus harabim. The Beis Shammai savri araya amar lo tiach gag hu tzarach. Beis Shammai says the reason why you can't be meilech l'sul mishel l'shevach is a marasayan problem that people are going to say the guy's going to fix his roof, which is a shiloh. What exactly is the isser of fixing a roof? Is it baina or is it being mamarech the roof? But al kopanim, is certainly going to be usher to do it, and therefore people are going to think that this guy is doing an avera on Yom Tov. Beis Hillel savri shayv chay meichiach halav. The actual nature of the ladder is meichiach to the onlooker that they're not doing anything wrong. The Meiri speaks out that it's a different metzias. The ladder itself has a different tzura to it. The kind of ladder that you use for a shevech rather than the all-purpose sulam shel aliyah, as we're going to talk about later in the Gemara. Avol b'reshus hayachid, but where you're not going to be seen by anybody, so you don't have the problem of marasayin, dever hakol mutter, then it's both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel says it's going to be mutter to move the ladder from place to place. Frek the Gemara, Eini, is it true? V'ha'amar of Yehuda Amar Rav, Kol makom she'asur chachamim mebnei marasayin. Whenever you have an isser marasayin, afilu b'cheder chadar mazasur. It's not about if people are lemaisa going to see it, even if you're technically in private. But the halacha of marasayin extends to that. So why would you tell me that we would be makel if it's b'rshus hayachid? Agav, on this point about afilu b'cheder chadar mazasur, I one time saw the kashi. The halacha is that if, of course, it's usur to eat dam, to eat blood. But if, let's say, you have the inside of your mouth is bleeding, al pi halacha, you're allowed to swallow the blood if it never left your mouth. If it did leave your mouth, you can't go back and ingest it. So I one time saw Rav Chanan in the Kavis Shurim, I believe it's Ksuvis. He asks that marasayin is usher afil b'cheder chadarim. So just because nobody can see the blood that's in your mouth, l'chayr, there should still be marasayin that you're swallowing blood that's usher. And he answers that chiddush that marasayin is usher afil b'cheder chadarim. That's only if it's physically possible for someone to come in. In other words, I'm in a room all by myself and the door is closed and the shades are drawn. No one can see what I'm doing. But in theory, somebody could physically walk in. No one can even see what's inside my mouth, so I don't have to be that machmir. So there is no such thing as a fil b'cheder chadar masar if it's impossible. So I'm sure that has other ramifications of halacha, but just an interesting marmakum. So for the Gemara Tanahi, this that Rav Chanan bar Ami says that b'reshus hayachid Beis Hillel will be mekel. That's because he has a tana to be soimachan. Because the Tanya sheichton b'chama, if somebody got out like stuck in the rain and their clothing is all wet, so he's allowed to be sheichton b'chama. He can spread out his clothing in the sun to dry it on Shabbos. Avaloi keneged oam, but he can't put it where people are going to see it because people are going to think he did kvisa. He washed his clothing on Shabbos. Rabbi Lezer of Shimon, Eiser. Rabbi Lezer of Shimon say it's going to be usher even if it's in private. But you see, there's a machlekes tanayim. Do we have to be chayshir for marasayin when people aren't going to be able to see it? Ikete Amri Omer of Chanan bar Ami machlekes b'reshus hayachid. The machlekes in our Mishnah is dafka only by b'reshus hayachid. The Beis Shammai is later reviewed Amar Rav. That Beis Shammai says it's usher because of Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav, that even b'cheder chadar mitzasser, who Beis Hillel less luder Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav. Al b'reshus harabim divrei hakol usher. So this was a much more machmir dika way of looking at the machlekes of Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. That b'reshus harabim, everybody's asking it's usher, and the only machlekes is b'reshus hayachid. Frek the Gemara. Lema Rav Damar Beis Shammai. Are we putting the memra of Rav that marasayin is usher b'cheder chadarim like Beis Shammai? We don't want to do that. Beis Shammai is le'ali b'hilchasa, so we're not happy with putting Rav like Beis Shammai. And for the Gemara Tanahi, no, don't worry. There are Tanayim to be soimachan, so that this way we're not putting Rav only with Beis Shammai. Ditanya sheichton b'chama avalei keneged oam. Rabbi Lezer bar Shimon Eisrin. So the Tanakama of this brisa is a source to be able to let Rav not have to be like Beis Shammai. Masnisan deloiki haitana. Our Mishnah is not like the following Tana. De Tanya, Omer of Shimon ben Elazar, Moedim Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, Shemaylichin as Asulam Meshevech l'Shevech. They both Beis Shammai Beis Hillel agree, according to Shimon ben Elazar, that you could move from Shevech l'Shevech lenechelku el lahachzer. The whole issue is not whether or not you can take the sulam to the Shevech; it's whether you can take it back after you're finished. Can you put it back in your garage? Beis Shammai Omer ein machzirin, Beis Hillel Omer af machzirin. Beis Hillel is so makel that he says not only can you bring it to lechatchila, but you can even put it back when you're finished. Omer Reb Yehuda, an important qualifier, Bamed devarim amurim besulam shel shevach. This is only talking about the sulam that's oimid for use of the shevach. Aval besulam shel aliyah, but if it's your regular, household ladder, divrei hakol aser. Everybody's going to be masking, both Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, even Beis Hillel is more mekel, he'll aser by a sulam shel aliyah. Rav Daisa Omer, Zokt Rav Daisa, Mateu mechaloin lechaloin. You're not allowed to carry the ladder, but you can tilt it from one chaloin to another chaloin. Acherim Omer mishum Rabbi Daisa, and Acherim have a different version of what Rav Daisa says. Not Mateu mechaloin lechaloin, but af medaded in boy. You can even hop it, move it. You can make it move from one of these chaloinos to another chaloin. Okay, so now we're going to break this down to see what exactly they're arguing about. And we'll do that based on the following story. B'nei Reb Chia Nafuk L'Kriyasa, the famous B'nei Reb Chia went out to the fields where, you have this a bunch of different times in Shas where the B'nei Reb Chia went out and they paskin shilas. I heard one time on a shir that they were trying to be makar of people, and that was the reason they were out there. But whatever. The fact is, they were pasking shilas. So Kiyasa Amar Luhavu, and when they came back, their father Reb Chia said, "So nu klum ma'isa bali yodchem? Did you have any psakim that you made?" Amar Lo, yeah, sulam bali yadenu v'hitarnuhu. And a sulam came, and Rashi points out that the sulam shel aliyah came to us, and we were matter. We were matter taking it to go to the chicken coops. So Amar Lehem, Reb Chia told them, Tzu'u v'isru mashi hitartem. Go back and aser that which you were matter, meaning you made a mistake. You were matter at B'tayas. Now, Inhu Safar, Reb Chia's sons made the following cheshbon. Amar Reb Yehuda b'sulam shel aliyah lo pligi. From the fact that Reb Yehuda, remember we just had this brisa saying Reb Yehuda said that the whole machlekes is by a sulam shel shevach, but a sulam shel aliyah there's no machlekes. So mechlal the Tanakama, meaning the bar plukta of Rabbi Yehuda, Savar pligi. He holds that they do argue. In which case you're going to have you'll have Beis Hillel be very makel by the sulam shel aliyah. That's what he held. V'lohi, but it's not true. He didn't get the right understanding of what Rabbi Yehuda was trying to say. Rabbi Yehuda wasn't coming to argue. Rabbi Yehuda latame de Tanakama kamafarish. He was explaining what the Tanakama held. That even avada sulam shel aliyah is also for sure. And his rationale was because it says you can be meilech the sulam from one shayvach to another shayvach. Now, if you're talking about the machlekes by sulam shel aliyah, then it's not going to start off. The story is not going to start off by the sulam. It should have said that you're bringing meilech the sulam to the shayvach, because if this is sulam shel aliyah, you're taking it out of your garage or out of your basement to bring it to the chicken coops. If it's a sulam shel shayvach, so then it's already there. It belongs there. That's its proper home. So you're going to be moving it from one to another. From the fact that it says mishayvach l'shayvach, that's implying that it was a sulam shel shayvach. That's when there's a heter, but there is no heter by sulam shel aliyah. Ela lav hachi kamer shel shayvach in shel aliyah lay, and everybody's going to be masking the sulam shel aliyah is usher, and that's why the Bnei Reb Chia were wrong according to Reb Chia. V'idach, and what did Bnei Reb Chia, how did they read this Mishnah? Because mikatani sulam shel shayvach, mishayvach l'shayvach katani v'afilu l'kama shayvachin. They weren't medayik that mishayvach l'shayvach means it's a sulam shel shayvach, because it doesn't say it's a sulam shel shayvach. They just read that mishayvach l'shayvach means you can go l'kama shayvachim, but it's avada talking about a sulam shel aliyah. Ika Amri, a different version of the story. Omru loy hitui sulam shel aliyah bali adena v'hitirnuhu. We were mater this sulam shel aliyah of hataya, of leaning it from one to the other. Amar lehem Reb Chia said back to him, Tzuva asur mashi hitartim, you got to go back and answer that which you're mater, that hataya was taka asur. So what's the cheshbon? Because inu savar, the Reb Chia's sons figured ma'idika asur Tanakama kashar Reb Daisa. That which the Tanakama was answering, Reb Daisa came afterwards, and he was mater, meaning Reb Yehuda said that absolutely sulam shel aliyah is always usher. And Reb Daisa comes and says, no, but tilting it is going to be okay. That hataya is going to be okay. And that's what Reb Chia were being soymachan. V'layi, midikashari Tanakama ka usher Reb Daisa. Reb Daisa wasn't coming to be mater, fakert. Reb Daisa was coming to aser that even in the case of a sulam shel shayvach, you can't carry it. All you're allowed to do, he's limiting it. You can't carry the sulam shel shayvach, you only do the hataya. But avada sulam shel aliyah is for sure aser. Okay, so I think more aval malteum echalein l'chalein, and the Mishnah continues to tell us that Beis Hillel is mater, even carrying the ladder from one chalain to the other. So it's mashma that Beis Shammai is l'chumra, Beis Hillel l'kula, which is kind of classical throughout Shas. Beis Shammai is more machmer than Beis Hillel. And that's in the context of Simchas Yom Tov. Viraminhi. Wow, it's l'chayra shver from the first Mishnah in the Masechta. Hashoichet chayav ha'oif b'Yom Tov. If you're a person who goes in and shechs a chay and a yof and yonda b'shamay ayrim yachvar b'deker v'yechasa Beis Hillel amrim lo yishchet alim kein hayla for mucham b'ayim. That's the whole sugi we just finished. That Beis Hillel is more machmir, that you can't shecht unless you had prepared offer. So he's not more mekel by Simchas Yom Tov. So it's interesting, of course, the Gemara chaps the case of the Shechita with the Kisei Adam. It doesn't just talk about a Be'esh Nolda B'Yom Tov, which Beis Hillel was also machmer. And Taisa says because there's no Simchas Yom Tov by the Be'esh Nolda B'Yom Tov. That's not. But here we're talking about the actual meat that you're shechting. There's a kula l'gabe Simchas Yom Tov to do a Shechita. Then that's a raya that Beis Hillel is more mekel by Simchas Yom Tov. Omer Rabbi Yochanan, so Rabbi Yochanan has a memra that says about this apparent steer between Shitas Beis Hillel, Mochlefes HaShita. Okay, we got to make a switch. And it's a machlekes rishonim whether or not we're switching the Mishnah that we're asking from, or and therefore Beis Hillel stays to be the machmir, or we're switching the first one and Beis Hillel now becomes the mekel. That's a machlekes Rashi and Tosfos, and the rishonim get into that. So the Gemara is now going to ask on this Muchlev Zashita. Mimai, why should it be Muchrach that you have to be Muchlev Zashita? Dilma Ad Kan Lekamri Beis Shammai Hasam Eladika Hechadika Deker Nights. The reason why Beis Shammai is going to be more Mekel in that first Mishnah about the do the Kisei Dam is because you have a Deker Nights, because you took away all the Yisurim by having that spade in the ground. So whether or not it's the Kasisha, or whether because it's Afer Tichuach, or there's no digging, or it's not Muktzah, but the point is the Deker Nights takes care of the Yisurim. Al Hechad Leka Deker Nights, lo, maybe in Echanami, Beis Shammai really normally would be more Machmir. Because here there's a special kula by those ladders because it's shevcha mechichla, so therefore there's no problem marasayin. But in the case of when you're digging up the dirt, then in the Chanami the Chazal have no reason to be mekel. Now, since Rabbi Yochanan did say this thing in Mechlev Zashita, we're going to struggle to try to find out where did he say it. So now, if you're going to ask a kasha that requires a Mechlev Zashita, it's going to be from somewhere else. So ultimately, we're going to do 5 different Mishnayos, and this is now Mishnah number 2 that we're going to attempt. The Mishnah says, Beis Shammai Oimrim He's Machmer, and says, Lo Yital El Im Kinaneim B'Yadayim. You're not allowed to take one of these birds to Shechtan Yom Tov unless you already were mezamin by picking it up. Beis Oimrim, no, he's more make. Oimed V'Oimrim, you could just stand and say, Zevazeh Ani Naitel. Right? That's what this forthcoming Mishnah is going to say. Alma Gabi Simchas Yom Tov Beis Shammai L'Chumra Beis Hillel L'Kula. Veramini Yashech from our first Mishnah, so there's the steeros off them. That's what we want to attempt. But if you don't have the kula of a deker nights by that shchita, then maybe you're not going to have be mekel. Or inami ad kan lekamri beis hillel hacha ela dikivin a mukzu, because this is only this sort of muktzah. So ba'imid va'imr zeh ani naitel sagi. It's enough just to point it out verbally. Avol hasam lei, but by the case of digging up the dirt, there he's not going to be mekel. Okay, so it's exactly the same format, and now we're going to do it 3 more times. So I'm going to go pretty quick. Eli kasha hakasha. This is the attempt. Beis Shammai ayrim ein night linas ali lekatev of basri. A person can't take this ali, this keli to chop meat on it. Beis Hillel matir and Beis Hillel says you can. So alma gabe simchas yom tov Beis Shammai l'chumer Beis Hillel l'kula v'ra mini hashechet chayav Beis Shammai etc. So Rabbi Yochanan mochlef zashita. That's where we're going to assume that Rabbi Yochanan made his mochlef zashita. So mimai dilmalai now because ad kan like Beis Shammai hasam hechad ikat deker nights. Once again, there's a special reason to be mekel because you have a deker nights. Aval hechad like a deker nights. No, or inami. Now this is where it's different. Ad kan like Beis Hillel hecha el the ikat is clear love. By this alila katav love basar, the reason why Beis Hillel be mekel is because it already has Torah's kli. Avul hasam loy, but by the case of digging, there's no reason to be mekel. So we give up on that one. Eli kasha kasha. This is a suggestion. Beis Shammai ayrim ein nice as a arlef neadarson. You can't place one of these the skin, the hide, where people are going to walk on it because that's going to be ma'abed the iris. V'loyag be henu ella imkein yeshalav kazayis basar. You're not allowed to pick it up unless there's actually a little piece of meat on it. Otherwise, it's going to be muktzah. Beis Hillel matir and Beis Hillel says it's okay. So alma gabi simchas yom tov Beis Shammai l'chumra Beis Hillel l'kula. Vera mini hashechet chayvei pi yom tov etc. On Rav Yochanan machlev zashita. Again, the same machlev zashita. So mimai dilmaloi yad kan like Beis Shammai hasam el hechad ikat deker nights aval hechad like deker nights lie. Reinami ad kan like Beis Hillel hacha. Here, why would Beis Hillel be mekel by that by the iris? Because someone can sit on it. It has episa use on Yom Tif. Aval hasam lei, but by the digging of the earth, it's not going to have any use. Okay, last one and final one. Eli kasha hakasha. Beis Shammai remain misalkan satrisim Yom Tif. You can't remove these kind of window shutters where the vendors will have put out their trays on Yom Tif. Ubeis Hillel matirin af lahachzer. You can even put it back after you're finished using it on Yom Tif. So the fact that Beis Hillel is more mekel. So alma gabi simchas Yom Tif Beis Shammai l'chomer Beis Hillel l'kula. Ivra minu hashechet chayvei Yom Tov, etc. Bishleim Beis Shammai lekasha hasam dika deker nights hachal leker deker nights, as we said a bunch of times already. Beis Hillel a Beis Hillel kasha, but now we'll have a steer between Beis Hillel Rabbi Yochanan mochlefes hashita. This is where we want to apply Rabbi Yochanan. Or inami, maybe you don't have to come on to the Muchlefes Hashita because Ad Kan Loy Kamri Beis Hillel Hachel Mishum De'ein Binyan Bekelim Vein Steer Bekelim. There's no Isser Bechlal to put away these treason in the first place because there's Ein Binyan and Ein Steer Bekelim. Abul Hassam, by the case of the digging at the dirt, Loy, there is no heter. Okay, we'll pick up the Mishnah Mirza Hashem tomorrow.